The orbital station shimmered like a floating city made of glass and starlight, suspended between three slowly rotating moons that painted soft blue shadows across its surface. Inside, the entrance hall of the elite networking dinner was louder than it looked, silent conversations happening through translation implants, subtle gestures carrying billion-credit meanings, and eyes that scanned reputations faster than voices could speak. He adjusted his suit for the fifth time, convinced the reflective fabric made him look cosmically significant. His chest was slightly too puffed, his smile slightly too rehearsed, and his confidence completely unmatched by reality. Every step he took into the hall felt like history was being rewritten around him, even though no one was actually looking at him. Beside him, she walked calmly, hands relaxed, expression unreadable. There was nothing flashy about her appearance, nothing that demanded attention. That, ironically, made her even less noticeable to someone like him, who only understood status through noise. He leaned closer and spoke in a low, commanding tone. "Sit down and be quiet," he muttered, eyes fixed ahead as if addressing a trainee instead of his wife. "You have no idea who you're sitting among." She didn't respond. Not because she lacked an answer, but because she had heard that sentence before, in different languages, in different galaxies, from people who thought importance was something you could wear like jewelry. The hall opened wider, revealing impossible architecture. Gravity here was polite rather than absolute. Chandeliers drifted like frozen comets. Alien diplomats floated slightly above their seats, their forms shifting between colors depending on emotion. Human executives sat beside beings made of light, sound, and something that resembled memory itself. He straightened his posture as if stepping onto a stage built just for him. "Finally," he whispered. "Real people." But as they entered deeper, subtle shifts began. Conversation softened. A few heads turned, not toward him, but slightly past him. Toward her. A waiter paused midair for a fraction of a second longer than necessary when passing their table. An alien across the room tilted its head, as if recognizing something buried deep in history rather than present in space. He didn't notice any of it. He was too busy believing the room was evaluating him. And in a way, he was right, just not in the way he thought. The dining chamber unfolded like a living galaxy. Tables arranged in slow orbit around a central holographic core that displayed shifting corporate empires as if they were constellations. Drinks floated gently beside guests, responding to subtle mural commands, and soft translation hums turned alien dialects into smooth, elegant language that still somehow carried hidden meaning underneath every word. He sat taller than anyone else at the table, convinced this was his moment of arrival. Every glance he caught, real or imagined, fed his confidence like fuel into a fire that had no awareness of oxygen limits. He leaned forward immediately when a cluster of well-dressed alien executives passed nearby. Yes, he said loudly. "I've been expanding my operations across emerging markets. Very soon, I'll be entering the Upper-Tier Galactic Commerce Index. It's only a matter of time before my name becomes, well known." No one reacted the way he expected. Some of them paused. Others simply redirected their attention elsewhere. A few subtly shifted their seating positions, not away from him, but slightly angled toward her instead, as if she were the true reference point in the room. He didn't notice. Instead, he turned slightly toward her with exaggerated authority. "And you," he whispered sharply, "just stay quiet. Don't say anything unnecessary. These people operate on a level you wouldn't understand." She blinked once, slowly, as if processing something trivial. Around them, the atmosphere subtly tightened. A waiter, floating tray held steady by gravitational fields, paused when reaching their table and placed a drink in front of her first, ignoring protocol order. Another attendant followed, adjusting her utensils with almost ceremonial care. He smiled at this, mistaking it for recognition of his presence. "Yes," he muttered to himself. "They can tell I'm important." Across the room, an alien executive with translucent skin and shifting gold veins stopped mid-conversation. Its gaze locked briefly on her. A faint tremor of recognition passed through its form, like a memory trying to escape suppression. It lowered its head, not in greeting, but in something closer to instinctive caution. The husband saw none of it. He was too busy narrating his future success, describing imaginary deals, imaginary influence, and imaginary admiration from everyone present. He gestured broadly, occasionally knocking his glass slightly off alignment with reality. She remained still, listening, not to him, but to the room itself. And the room, in turn, was starting to remember her. The energy in the chamber shifted slowly at first, like a distant gravitational wave passing through polite conversation. Nothing was announced. Nothing was displayed. Yet every being in the room began to behave as if an old memory had just opened its eyes. It started with a single interruption, a high-ranking alien executive approaching their table mid-step, then stopping as its perception systems recalibrated. Its form flickered between colors of hesitation and recognition. It did not speak immediately. Instead, it performed a subtle gesture of acknowledgement that was far too respectful for someone who was supposed to be merely a guest. The husband noticed it instantly, but misunderstood it completely. "See that?" he whispered proudly. "Even the top-tier people are noticing me now. I told you this networking level is different." He straightened his collar and leaned forward as if preparing to receive praise. Meanwhile, the alien executive's attention had already bypassed him entirely and locked onto her. Then another shift. A second figure arrived, this one older, carrying insignias of ancient interstellar trade councils. It paused too, not with surprise, but with something closer to controlled alarm. Its voice, when it finally spoke, was soft but heavy with meaning. "The Void signature, it is present again." That phrase traveled through nearby translators and rippled across the table in silence. A few nearby guests subtly repositioned themselves. Not away from danger, but toward protocol. Still, the husband heard only fragments. "Void signature?" he muttered. "Probably some industry term. I'm telling you, I'm starting to get recognized at this level." He chuckled under his breath, completely unaware that multiple systems in the room had just flagged her presence as a high-priority anomaly. She finally moved slightly, lifting her glass with calm precision. The motion alone caused two attendants to instinctively step closer, adjusting environmental fields around her seat without being asked. It was not hospitality. It was response. Then she spoke. "Your markets still function on emotional speculation?" Her voice was quiet, almost casual. Yet the effect was immediate. Conversations nearby stopped mid-sentence. A holographic projection flickered and recalibrated itself as if unsure whether it had permission to continue displaying data. The husband laughed lightly, assuming she was trying to sound clever. "Don't try to impress them," he whispered quickly. "You don't understand their level of thinking." But the room did not laugh. Instead, several high-ranking figures exchanged brief, uneasy glances. One of them lowered its head slightly, as if confirming something it had feared for a long time. Across the table, an ancient-looking alien strategist finally spoke, its tone careful and restrained. "The Void Architect does not ask questions without consequence." The title spread like a quiet shockwave. And for the first time, even if only faintly, the husband felt something he could not immediately convert into confidence. The silence that followed was not empty, it was structured. Like the room itself had rearranged its understanding of reality, and was waiting for confirmation from a source it already feared. The Central Council representatives arrived without announcement. They simply appeared, as if the concept of entry did not apply to them anymore. Their presence bent attention across the chamber, drawing even distant conversations into quiet suspension. Every major figure in the room subtly adjusted their posture, not in greeting, but in alignment. The husband finally noticed something was wrong. Not fully wrong. Just misdirected. Because when the council's gaze moved past him without hesitation and settled directly on her, his brain struggled to find a comfortable explanation. "This must be formal recognition," he whispered to himself, forcing a smile. "They're probably acknowledging my influence through association." But no one echoed his assumption. No one validated it. Even the air around their table seemed to ignore him more deliberately now. One of the council members spoke, its voice layered with multiple tonal frequencies, each one carrying administrative authority across systems. Approval is required. The Void Architect's signature is needed for stabilization of sector-wide restructuring. At that, the room collectively lowered its intensity. Lights softened, movement slowed, and even floating service trays stabilized as if waiting for judgment. The husband blinked rapidly. "Wait, signature?" he said, leaning forward. Yes, I can authorize." Two attendants gently but firmly redirected him back into his seat. Not aggressively. Just with the calm efficiency used when someone is not part of the decision process. For the first time, he stopped speaking mid-sentence. She turned her head slightly toward him. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just with a calmness that felt heavier than any raised voice. "You told me to sit down and be quiet," she said softly. A pause stretched across the table, long enough for even the translation systems to hesitate before continuing. Then she added, almost gently, "You were right. You just never understood what you were sitting among." Across the chamber, the council members bowed their heads, not toward him, but toward her. The realization did not arrive like a shock. It arrived like subtraction. Piece by piece, his assumptions lost support until nothing remained stable enough to hold them up. He looked around slowly. The admiration he thought he had seen was never there. The respect he believed he earned had always been redirected. Every moment of confidence he carried into this room had been built on a misunderstanding so complete it almost felt intentional. And still, she remained composed, neither punishing nor comforting him, simply existing in a position the universe had already agreed to acknowledge long before he entered it. Outside the chamber, the galaxy's economic projections quietly updated themselves. Without him,